The feminine energy you lost in survival mode. You did not lose your feminine energy. It went into hiding. It hid beneath responsibility, beneath disappointment, beneath the pressure to remain strong when no one else was coming to help. Maybe there was a time when you felt softer, more creative, more intuitive, more emotionally alive. You trusted more easily. You laughed without analyzing everything. You allowed life to surprise you. Then something changed. Perhaps someone betrayed you. Perhaps you became responsible for everyone around you. Perhaps life taught you that if you did not stay alert, take control, and prepare for the worst, everything would fall apart. So you adapted. You became efficient, independent, careful, strong. But eventually, strength stopped feeling empowering, started feeling exhausting. You found yourself unable to relax, even when nothing was wrong. Unable to receive help without feeling uncomfortable. Unable to trust good moments because part of you was already preparing for the next disappointment. This is what survival mode does. Does not only affect your thoughts, changes the way you breathe, the way you love, the way you rest, the way you experience your own body. And over time, it can disconnect you from the feminine part of your nature. The part that creates, receives, senses, feels, nurtures, and trusts. In this video, we are going to explore how feminine energy becomes blocked, why so many women mistake exhaustion for strength, and how to return to softness without becoming vulnerable to the same pain that hardened you. Because the goal is not to become the woman you were before life tested you. The goal is to become a wiser version of her. Soft but discerning. Open but protected. Intuitive but grounded. Strong without living in constant battle. There is a kind of exhaustion that sleep cannot fix. You may sleep 8 hours and still wake up tired. You may take a day off and still feel mentally busy. You may sit in silence and discover that your body does not know how to relax. This exhaustion does not always come from doing too much. Sometimes it comes from carrying too much internally, constantly anticipating problems, managing other people's emotions, trying to prevent disappointment, thinking about what might go wrong, replaying conversations, making sure everyone is okay, and rarely asking whether you are okay. Many women have lived this way for so long that they no longer recognize it as survival. They call it responsibility, independence, maturity, strength, and yes, sometimes it is all of those things. But when strength becomes permanent tension, something inside begins to close. Your nervous system becomes focused on protection. Your mind becomes focused on control. Your heart becomes focused on avoiding pain. And the feminine part of your being begins to retreat. Not because it disappeared, but because it no longer feels safe enough to emerge. Feminine energy is often misunderstood. It is not about looking delicate. It is not about wearing a certain type of clothing. It is not about becoming dependent, passive, or obedient. Feminine energy is the capacity to feel connected to life, to create, to receive, to intuit, to rest, to experience emotion without being ashamed of it, to allow beauty, meaning, connection, and inspiration to enter your world. It is the part of you that knows when something feels right before you can logically explain why. It is the part that hears the message beneath the words. The part that wants to move, sing, write, decorate, nurture, imagine, and transform. But this energy cannot flow freely when your entire system is preparing for danger. That is why this video is not about pretending to be softer. It is about discovering why softness stopped feeling safe. And before we continue, I want to ask you for one simple exchange. If you value content that helps you understand your emotions, spiritual life, relationships, and personal transformation, subscribe to this channel. Your support allows us to continue creating meaningful videos for people who are ready to understand themselves at a deeper level. Now let us begin with the first sign that your feminine energy may have gone into hiding. Chapter 1. When strength becomes survival, there is healthy strength, and there is survival strength. From the outside, they can look almost identical. Both women appear capable. Both know how to solve problems. Both continue moving when life becomes difficult. But internally, they are living very different experiences. Healthy strength responds to a challenge. Survival strength expects one. Healthy strength activates when something needs attention. Then, when the situation has passed, it allows the body and mind to release it. Survival strength never fully turns off. Even when life is peaceful, part of you remains alert, watching, calculating, preparing. You may be sitting in a quiet room, but your mind is already managing tomorrow. What needs to be completed? What might go wrong? Who may need you? What you may have forgotten? You are physically present, but emotionally you are still preparing for the future. This is one of the clearest signs that strength has become survival. You no longer respond only to real problems. You anticipate imagined ones. You rehearse conversations that may never happen. You create backup plans for situations that do not yet exist. And when everything finally seems under control, you do not experience relief. You search for the next thing that needs your attention. Because somewhere along the way, calm stopped feeling natural. It began to feel suspicious. When life becomes quiet, you may wonder, what am I forgetting? What is about to happen? Why do I feel as though something is wrong? This is not because you enjoy worrying. It may be because your nervous system learned that peace was temporary. So instead of enjoying a good moment, you prepare for its ending. A woman living from healthy strength understands that challenges are part of life. But she does not organize her entire identity around preventing them. She can act, protect herself, make difficult decisions, and then release the responsibility when the moment has passed. A woman in survival mode struggles to release it. She believes that if she stops paying attention, something may fall apart. So she becomes the person who handles everything. The one who remembers, organizes, fixes, anticipates, and keeps moving even when she is emotionally exhausted. People admire her. They say, "You are so strong. You always know what to do. I don't know how you manage everything." And she may feel proud of that identity, because strength became the quality that earned her respect. But what others call strength may sometimes be exhaustion with excellent posture. They see the results. They do not see the internal cost. They do not see the fatigue, the irritation, the emotional numbness, the tears postponed because something else always seems more urgent. They know the woman who can handle anything. They may not know the woman who is tired of having to. Perhaps you recognize yourself here. You are the person everyone calls during a crisis. The one who stays calm while others fall apart. The one who makes the difficult phone call, keeps the family connected, finds the solution, continues functioning while privately carrying pain. You may be so accustomed to being the strong one that other people forget you also have limits. And perhaps you have forgotten them too. You continue saying yes because you know you can handle it. But being able to carry something does not mean it always belongs to you. This is where survival strength becomes dangerous. Convinces you that capability creates obligation. If you can solve the problem, you should. If you can carry the weight, you must. If you can continue, you are not allowed to stop. But capability is not consent. Strength does not mean every burden is yours. And being the most responsible person in the room does not make you responsible for everyone in it. Many women learn this pattern early. Perhaps you grew up in an emotionally unpredictable environment. You learned to read the room before you spoke. You noticed changes in tone, the sound of footsteps, the way a door closed, the silence that meant tension was building. You became observant because observation helped you feel safe. Maybe you became the responsible daughter, peacekeeper, the mature one, the child who needed very little. Adults may have praised your independence, but no one asked why you had become independent so early. Perhaps you helped care for younger siblings, comforted a parent, managed conflict, protected family secrets, or learned that expressing your own needs created more stress. So your needs became quieter. You told yourself they could wait. Eventually, waiting became normal. These experiences can create a highly capable adult, a woman who adapts, endures, finds solutions, and survives difficult seasons. But they can also create a woman who believes her value comes from usefulness. She feels important because she helps, because she fixes, because she remains available, because she asks for little and carries much. And beneath all that strength may be one painful question. If I stop being useful, will I still be valued? This is the deeper wound survival strength can hide. You may no longer know who you are outside responsibility. You know the role you perform, the dependable one, capable one, the one who never falls apart. But who are you when there is no crisis? When no one needs an answer? When you are not solving, organizing, or carrying? That question can feel uncomfortable because survival may have become more than something you do. It may have become your identity. The first step toward restoring feminine energy is not becoming less capable. It is not pretending to be helpless. And it is not waiting for someone else to rescue you. It is recognizing where capability has become armor. Armor is useful in battle. But when you wear it everywhere, it becomes difficult to breathe. It may protect you from being hurt, but it can also prevent you from feeling fully alive. Your strength is not the enemy. It helped you survive. It brought you through experiences that required courage, discipline, and endurance. But strength was never meant to be your only state. You are allowed to exist without constantly proving what you can handle. You are allowed to have value when you are not solving a problem. You are allowed to stop before life forces you to stop. This is where feminine restoration begins. Not with an external transformation, but with a new internal permission. I do not have to earn my worth through exhaustion. Ask yourself, has strength become something I choose, or something I no longer know how to turn off? Do I feel valuable only when I am needed? Who am I when no one is asking anything from me? Do not rush the answer, because the woman beneath the role is still there. She has not disappeared. She may simply be waiting to discover that she no longer has to live every moment as though life were an emergency. Chapter 2. Why the feminine self goes into hiding. Your feminine self does not disappear because you become busy. It does not vanish because you work hard, because you lead, because you become independent. A woman can be ambitious, disciplined, capable, and still deeply connected to her feminine nature. The feminine self retreats for a different reason. It retreats when openness begins to feel unsafe, when vulnerability becomes associated with humiliation, when tenderness becomes associated with being taken advantage of, when emotional honesty becomes associated with rejection, and when love begins to feel more dangerous than loneliness. Your feminine self is the part of you that feels, connects, imagines, receives, expresses affection, allows beauty, emotion, and meaning to reach you. But all of these qualities require openness. And openness becomes difficult when life has repeatedly taught you that an open heart is an unprotected heart. Imagine a woman who once trusted easily. She spoke honestly, loved generously, expressed enthusiasm, allowed herself to hope. Then something changed. Perhaps she was betrayed. Perhaps her vulnerability was later used against her. Perhaps she expressed pain and was told she was being dramatic. Perhaps she trusted someone who repeatedly lied. Perhaps she opened her heart and was abandoned without explanation. Experiences like these do more than create sadness. They change the meaning of vulnerability. Before the betrayal, openness meant connection. Afterward, openness begins to mean exposure. Trust begins to mean risk. Love begins to mean the possibility of losing control. And somewhere inside, she makes a silent promise. Never again. Never again will I need someone this much. Never again will I reveal everything I feel. Never again will I allow another person enough access to hurt me so deeply. First, this promise feels protective, creates distance from the pain. It restores a sense of control. She becomes more careful, more selective, less easily impressed. And some of that may be healthy. Pain can teach discernment. It can help a woman recognize patterns she once ignored. But protection does not always know when to stop. A boundary can become a wall. Discernment can become suspicion. Independence can become isolation. And emotional control can become emotional disconnection. The same defense that prevents pain may also prevent intimacy. The same wall that keeps unsafe people out may keep sincere people at a distance. The promise that says, "I will never be hurt like that again," may quietly become, "I will never be fully known again." This is how the feminine self goes into hiding. Not through one dramatic decision. Through small acts of emotional retreat. You stop saying what you really feel. You say, "It doesn't matter," when it does. You act indifferent when you care deeply. You hide your excitement so you will not look foolish if something fails. You minimize your hopes before anyone else has the chance to disappoint them. You tell people you are fine because explaining the truth feels too vulnerable. Eventually, even tenderness can begin to feel embarrassing. From the outside you may appear calm. But calm is not always peace. Sometimes calm is emotional withdrawal. Sometimes silence is not confidence. It is the decision to stop explaining yourself because you no longer believe you will be understood. And when this continues for too long, emotional protection can become numbness. At first, you try to stop feeling only what hurts. The grief, the fear, the disappointment, the longing. But emotions do not remain in separate compartments. When pain is pushed away for too long, joy can become quieter too. Excitement, desire, playfulness, hope, a sense of possibility. You may continue functioning, working, helping, meeting responsibilities. But something inside feels distant. You are present in your life yet not fully connected to it. This is why some women eventually say, "I don't feel like myself anymore." They cannot always explain what is missing. Nothing appears dramatically wrong. But the inner spark feels weaker. They are functioning, not flourishing. The issue is not that they have become less feminine. The issue is that their system no longer associates openness with safety. And this is why external advice often fails. A woman may be told to become softer, more trusting, more emotionally available. But if softness once led to pain, she cannot simply command herself to open again. Femininity cannot be forced through appearance or behavior. It returns when openness begins to feel safer. That safety does not come from trusting everyone. Comes from learning that you can open gradually, observe carefully, and remain connected to yourself while allowing another person closer. You do not have to reveal everything immediately. You do not owe vulnerability to people who have not demonstrated care. You do not have to become naive in order to become open. True openness has timing. It grows through consistency. It responds to evidence. The goal is not to become the woman you were before the pain. The goal is to become a wiser version of her. A woman who can feel deeply without ignoring reality. A woman who can remain warm without becoming unprotected. A woman who can trust slowly instead of closing completely. Healing was never supposed to make you harder. It was supposed to make you more discerning. And perhaps the return of your feminine energy begins with one honest question. What part of me have I hidden because I was afraid it would be hurt again? Do not rush the answer. The hidden part of you may not need to be pushed forward. It may simply need proof that this time, you will not abandon it. And in the next chapter, we will explore where that hidden story often remains long after the mind believes it has moved on. The body. Chapter 3. Your body has been holding the story. The mind can say, I am fine. The body often tells a different story. Tight shoulders, clenched jaw, shallow breathing, heavy chest, difficulty sleeping, fatigue that does not seem to match the day, restlessness when everything becomes quiet, a sudden physical reaction when a certain person calls, a feeling of pressure inside the body even when no immediate problem is visible. These sensations do not automatically mean emotional stress is the only cause. Persistent or concerning physical symptoms should always be evaluated appropriately. But prolonged stress can affect the way the body feels and responds. The body often carries what the mind has not fully processed. You may believe you have moved on, but when a familiar situation appears, your body reacts before you have time to think. A name appears on your phone. Your chest tightens. Someone becomes quiet. Your stomach contracts. Life becomes peaceful. And instead of relaxing, you begin waiting for something to go wrong. This does not mean you are weak. It may mean your body learned to survive through preparation. The mind understands through explanation. The body understands through experience. You can tell yourself, it is over. But if your body spent months or years expecting conflict, rejection, or instability, one thought may not be enough to create safety. It may need repeated experiences that show, this moment is different. Not every silence means danger. Not every change means abandonment. Not every pause means something is about to fall apart. This is why healing is not only intellectual. You can understand your history clearly and still feel tension when something reminds your body of the past. Imagine a woman who lived for years with someone emotionally unpredictable. She learned to notice every shift, tone of voice, facial expression, the sound of footsteps, the way a door closed. Her body became skilled at detecting change. Years later, she may be in a safer environment. But when someone she loves becomes quiet, the old response returns. Her shoulders rise. Her breathing changes. Her mind begins searching for an explanation. The present moment may be harmless, but the body has already connected silence with danger. This is how the past can remain active without returning as a clear memory. Sometimes it returns as tension, an urge to escape, a need to react quickly, an inability to remain still. A woman may not remember every moment that taught her to stay alert, but the body may still remember the pattern. This matters because feminine energy is experienced through the body, not only through thought, through breath, movement, sensory awareness, emotional presence, pleasure, connection. When the body remains tense, attention moves outward. You begin scanning the environment, watching people, anticipating changes. You become highly aware of everyone else and increasingly disconnected from yourself. You may become excellent at reading the room, but struggle to read your own body. Someone asks, "What do you need?" And you do not know. What do you want? You immediately begin thinking about what would be easiest for everyone else. This does not mean you have no desires. It may mean your attention has been trained toward responsibility and away from yourself. The body may also carry emotions that were never given enough space. Anger that had to remain polite. Grief that had to wait. Fear hidden beneath competence. Disappointment minimized to avoid conflict. Those emotions may not disappear. They may remain as tension. Tight throat. Raised shoulders. A restless night. A body that never feels completely at ease. This is why emotional vigilance is exhausting. Monitoring other people is work. Suppressing reactions is work. Pretending not to be affected is work. Holding everything together requires energy. A woman may say, "I don't understand why I am so tired." But there may be a hidden workload beneath the visible one. Many women try to reconnect with femininity only through the exterior. New clothes, beauty routine, softer colors, flowers, music, peaceful room. These things can be enjoyable, but they cannot replace internal safety. You can create a beautiful environment and still feel tense inside it. You can take a bath while mentally organizing tomorrow. You can wear something soft while your body remains prepared for battle. Aesthetic softness is not the same as embodied safety. The first step is not forcing the body to relax. It is noticing it without judgment. Several times a day, pause. Are my shoulders raised? Is my jaw tight? Am I holding my breath? Is my stomach tense? Am I rushing even though there is no emergency? Do not correct everything immediately. First, notice. Awareness sends a simple message. I am here. I am listening. Then bring your attention back to the present. Slow your breathing gently. Feel your feet touching the floor. Notice the support beneath you. Look around the room. What is happening right now? Not what happened before. Not what might happen later. What is happening now? Perhaps the answer is simple. I am sitting here. I am breathing. No one is asking me to solve anything in this moment. I am safe enough to pause. Safe enough. Not perfectly calm. Not guaranteed complete control. Just safe enough for this moment. This is how the body begins learning a new experience. Not through force, through repetition. Each time you notice tension without attacking yourself, you create space. Each time you pause before reacting, you teach the body that another response is possible. Each time you remain present during a calm moment instead of searching for the next problem, peace becomes a little less unfamiliar. The goal is not to become obsessed with every sensation. It is to rebuild communication with yourself. To become curious instead of critical. To notice what persists. To seek support when necessary. And to understand that healing is not only something you think about. It is something you gradually learn to inhabit. Your feminine energy begins returning when your body no longer feels like a machine you must force through life. When it begins to feel like a home, a place you can listen to, respect, and care for. Ask yourself, what has my body been trying to tell me that I have been too busy to hear? Do not force an answer. Simply notice what appears. Because the body has not been working against you. It may have been protecting you long after the danger passed. And in the next chapter, we will explore one of the main reasons that tension remains. The belief that if you stop controlling everything, your life will fall apart. Chapter 4. The illusion of control. Control often looks like strength, can look like discipline, preparation, responsibility, intelligence. People may even praise you for always having everything under control. But control and inner security are not the same thing. Sometimes control is fear wearing a competent face. Fear that something will go wrong. Fear that people will disappoint you. Fear that if you stop managing every detail, life will become unstable. So you plan. Then plan again. You imagine what could happen. Prepare for what might fail. Replay conversations. Monitor changes. And become uncomfortable when people or circumstances behave unpredictably. Control gives the mind something to do with uncertainty. It says, if I can understand everything, I can protect myself. If I can anticipate every possibility, nothing will surprise me. If I stay alert, I will never feel powerless again. For a while, this can create relief. Planning can be useful. Preparation can help you make better decisions. The problem begins when planning is no longer a tool. It becomes a condition for emotional safety. You no longer prefer certainty. You begin to believe you cannot be okay without it. And life cannot offer that kind of certainty. People change. Plans fail. Circumstances shift. Doors close. Even wise decisions cannot guarantee perfect outcomes. This is the illusion of control. not believing that your choices matter. They do. The illusion is believing your choices can control everything beyond you. There is an important difference between preparation and control. Preparation asks, "What can I reasonably do?" Control asks, "How can I guarantee the result?" Preparation accepts that uncertainty remains. Control treats uncertainty as failure. Preparation helps you act. Control keeps you mentally trapped after the action is complete. You send the message, then check repeatedly for a response. You make the decision, then replay every possible consequence. You finish the work, then search for what may still be wrong. Control does not know how to say, "I have done enough," because if something later goes wrong, you fear you will blame yourself for not preventing it. This pattern often begins when uncertainty once had real consequences. Perhaps promises changed without warning. Affection was given and withdrawn. Important events happened without your consent. Betrayal, financial crisis, sudden loss, and somewhere inside you decided, "I will never be unprepared again." That decision may have helped you survive. But now it may be asking you to perform an impossible task. To know what cannot yet be known. To prevent every possible loss. To make life completely predictable. Control becomes especially exhausting when it enters relationships. You may try to control how someone sees you, how quickly they respond, what they feel, what the relationship will become. You analyze messages, search for hidden meanings, imagine future conversations, and confuse mental activity with emotional safety. But thinking about a relationship constantly does not give you more control over it. It only keeps your attention attached to every fluctuation. You may believe, "If I say this perfectly, they will finally understand. If I become more patient, they will change. If I love them well enough, the relationship will become secure." But no perfect explanation can create emotional maturity in another person. No amount of patience can make someone ready before they choose readiness. No amount of love can force consistency. At some point, the relationship stops being a connection, becomes a project, and you become exhausted trying to produce an outcome that requires another person's participation. This is why responsibility and control must be separated. Responsibility says, "I will take care of what belongs to me." Control says, "I must manage what belongs to everyone." Your words belong to you. Your choices belong to you. Your preparation belongs to you. Your standards belong to you. Your response belongs to you. But another person's reaction does not. Their timing does not. Their honesty does not. Their emotional maturity does not. Their willingness to change does not. You may influence another person, but influence is not control. You may communicate clearly, but the other person remains free to respond however they choose. When you attempt to control what does not belong to you, your energy goes into a place where it has no authority. That is why control is so draining. You keep spending emotional energy without gaining real power. The first step is not to eliminate all planning. It is to recognize where planning ends and control begins. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen? What am I trying to guarantee? Is there a real action I need to take? Or am I trying to remove all uncertainty? What belongs to me here? Then take the action that genuinely belongs to you. And stop where your authority ends. You can communicate your heart. You cannot force someone to value it. You can prepare carefully. You cannot command the outcome. You can plant a seed. You cannot pull on it to make it grow faster. This is not helplessness. It is clarity. Control asks, how can I make this happen? Trust asks, what is this situation already showing me? Sometimes the truth is not hidden. It is simply uncomfortable. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop trying to force a different answer from the same reality. Chapter 5. Receptivity is not dependence. Many women know how to give. They give time, support, advice, attention, patience, emotional labor. They notice what others need before anyone asks. They remember details, solve problems, listen for hours. And because they give so naturally, people often describe them as generous, reliable, and strong. But when someone tries to give something back, they become uncomfortable. A compliment arrives, and they minimize it. Someone offers help, and they immediately say, "No, I'm fine." A thoughtful gesture appears, and they respond, "You didn't have to do that." Someone asks what they need, and they say, "Nothing. I'm okay." This may look humble, independent, considerate, but sometimes it reveals difficulty receiving. Giving feels safer because you remain in control. You decide what is offered, how much, when, and to whom. Receiving is different. Someone else contributes. Someone else affects you. And if help was once used as leverage, receiving may feel risky. Perhaps someone gave you something and later reminded you of it. Perhaps affection came with expectations. Perhaps support was conditional. So you learned, if I need nothing, no one can control me. If I accept nothing, no one can use it against me. If I handle everything alone, I remain safe. This can create strong independence. But it can also make genuine care difficult to recognize. A trustworthy person may offer support. Your mind understands the gesture, but your body searches for the hidden cost. You feel pressure to repay them immediately. Receiving does not feel nourishing, feels exposing. This is why some women confuse receptivity with dependence. But they are not the same. Dependence says, "I cannot function without you." Receptivity says, "I am capable and I can also allow support." Dependence transfers responsibility. Receptivity allows participation. Dependence says, "Save me." Receptivity says, "Stand with me." Healthy relationships are not built on total dependence, but they are not built on emotional isolation either. They require mutual exchange. Each person remains responsible for their own choices and growth. But neither person pretends that connection is unnecessary. The problem is that many women become so skilled at appearing self-sufficient that no one knows how to help them. They say they are fine, then feel hurt when no one offers more. They solve every problem before anyone can participate. They hide exhaustion, then feel invisible. This does not mean other people have no responsibility. They do. But receiving is also a skill. And some women never had the chance to develop it. You may know exactly how to care for others, but have no language for asking others to care for you. You may want help, but when someone asks what you need, you say, "I don't know." It doesn't matter. Sometimes you do know, but saying it aloud creates vulnerability. A need can be accepted or rejected, so silence feels safer. But healthy connection requires more than hoping someone will guess. Receiving begins when needs become visible. You might say, "I need you to listen without fixing this." "I would appreciate help with dinner." "I am tired and I need some quiet. Can you handle this today?" These requests are not weakness. They are honest participation. There is also a deeper reason receiving can feel difficult. If you have spent years being the strong one, accepting care can disturb your identity. Who are you when someone else solves the problem? Who are you when you are not needed? For some women, usefulness became the foundation of worth. Being needed created belonging. Giving created importance. So receiving may awaken the fear. If I stop overgiving, will I still be valuable? This can lead a woman toward relationships where she is always necessary. She becomes the listener, the helper, the rescuer, the emotionally responsible one. But she may not know how to be loved without being needed. That is the wound beneath many one-sided relationships. A healthy feminine flow includes both giving and receiving. Think of breathing. You cannot only exhale. You must also inhale. Receiving is the emotional inhale. It allows care, support, beauty, and nourishment to enter. When energy only moves outward, depletion eventually follows. You may begin feeling unappreciated, resentful. Resentment often reveals that giving is no longer fully free. You continue because you feel obligated, afraid to disappoint, afraid to lose the relationship. But inwardly you are tired. There is a difference between generosity and self-abandonment. Generosity says, I choose to give this. Self-abandonment says, I must give this so I remain valuable. Generosity can say no. Self-abandonment is afraid to. Receptivity helps restore balance. And it begins in ordinary moments. Accept a compliment without arguing. Thank you. Allow someone to carry something. Not because you cannot, because you do not have to prove strength every second. When a trusted person asks how you are, answer with one honest sentence. When help is offered, pause before refusing automatically. Ask yourself, do I truly not need help? Or does receiving make me uncomfortable? Healthy receiving still requires discernment. Not every offer should be accepted. Not every gift is pure. Not every person deserves access. Receptivity does not mean becoming naive. It means remaining open enough to evaluate what is being offered. You can receive kindness without becoming obligated. You can accept help without surrendering autonomy. You can appreciate support without giving someone control over your life. Healthy care leaves you with more freedom. Manipulative care leaves you with less. This distinction matters. Receiving also means allowing others to contribute imperfectly. Someone may help in a way that is different from yours. They may not solve the problem exactly as you would. If the result is safe and acceptable, difference is not failure. Sometimes another person cannot contribute because there is no room to contribute imperfectly. If every attempt is corrected, they may eventually stop offering. Then you feel alone with responsibilities you never fully released. Receptivity asks you to loosen your grip without lowering your standards. It asks you to allow another person's contribution to be real, even when it is not identical to yours. Perhaps the deepest form of receptivity is believing that you can be cared for without performing first. You do not have to solve a crisis to deserve comfort. You do not have to reach exhaustion before accepting support. You do not have to prove usefulness before asking for help. You are allowed to receive and remain yourself. Ask yourself, when someone offers help, what is my first reaction? Gratitude, suspicion, guilt, pressure. Do I immediately search for a way to repay them? Do I secretly want care while insisting that I need nothing? And what might enter your life if receiving no longer felt dangerous? Your feminine energy may not be waiting for you to become softer on the outside. It may be waiting for you to open your hands. Chapter 6. Intuition becomes quiet in survival mode. Your intuition has not abandoned you. It may simply be difficult to hear. Not because it has become weaker, because fear has become louder. When a woman spends too much time in survival mode, her inner world becomes crowded. Thoughts move quickly. The mind anticipates danger. Every silence demands an explanation. Every change feels significant. Every uncertainty becomes something that must be solved immediately. Under those conditions, intuition does not disappear. It becomes buried beneath mental noise. Intuition and anxiety can feel similar at first. Both may create a strong internal sensation. Both may make you pause. Both may tell you that something deserves attention. But they usually communicate differently. Anxiety multiplies, creates one frightening possibility, then another, tasks. What if something is wrong? What if I am missing a warning? What if I make the wrong decision? What if I regret this forever? Anxiety repeats itself, demands certainty. It wants an answer immediately. Intuition is often simpler, quieter, more direct. May say, wait, ask another question. Do not ignore this inconsistency. This opportunity deserves attention. You already know what this is showing you. Intuition does not always explain everything, but it usually does not create endless mental chaos. Anxiety creates urgency without direction. Intuition creates direction without always creating urgency. This distinction becomes difficult when your nervous system is accustomed to danger. A delayed message may feel like abandonment. A change in tone may feel like rejection. A healthy relationship may feel suspicious because calm does not resemble the intensity you once called love. Something unfamiliar may feel unsafe simply because it is new. This is how survival mode can distort inner perception. You may call fear intuition, or dismiss genuine intuition because you no longer trust yourself. Perhaps there were times when you sensed that something was wrong and ignored it. You noticed inconsistency, recognized that an explanation did not make sense, felt that something had changed, but you convinced yourself that you were imagining it. Later, the truth appeared. Now you may be determined never to ignore yourself again. That decision can be healthy, but it can also move too far in the opposite direction. You may begin treating every uncomfortable feeling as proof, every fear as foresight, every coincidence as confirmation, every physical reaction as a warning. But discomfort is not always intuition. Sometimes discomfort is an old wound being activated. Sometimes it is exhaustion. Sometimes it is insecurity. Sometimes it is the fear of doing something unfamiliar. Discernment requires more than asking, "What do I feel?" It also asks, "What may be influencing what I feel?" Imagine that someone's behavior changes. Anxiety may immediately create an entire story. They are losing interest. I did something wrong. They are going to leave. The relationship was never real. Intuition may say something much simpler. Their behavior has become inconsistent. That statement is specific. It is based on what is happening. It does not invent the full explanation. Tells you where to place your attention. Intuition notices a pattern. Anxiety tries to complete the story before enough information exists. Intuition may say, "Something has changed." Anxiety says, "I must know exactly what it means right now." Intuition invites observation. Anxiety demands a conclusion. A grounded woman does not ignore what she feels. But she also does not turn one feeling into an entire narrative without evidence. She pauses, observes, asks questions, and allows behavior to provide more information. This is where intuition and reason begin to work together. The same principle applies to opportunities. Something new appears. Part of you feels excited. Another part feels afraid. Fear may say, "This is not meant for me." But fear of growth is not the same as intuitive rejection. Sometimes the unfamiliar feels dangerous because you have not experienced it before. Intuition may say, "This matters, but move carefully." This looks attractive, but something important is missing. Intuition is not always a dramatic yes or no. Sometimes it asks you to slow down, gather more information, observe what repeats. You do not have to understand every sensation immediately. You can say, "I notice fear. I notice excitement. I notice that something feels unresolved. I do not have enough information yet." That is not indecision. It is discernment. One of the most useful practices is separating observation from interpretation. Observation. "He cancelled our last 3 plans." Interpretation. "He never cared about me." The observation gives you information. The interpretation may or may not be true. Another example. Observation. "I feel tense every time I enter this environment." Interpretation. "Something terrible is going to happen." The tension deserves attention, but it still needs investigation. Ask yourself, what facts do I have? What story am I adding? What am I afraid this situation means? Has a pattern been established? Or did one detail activate an old memory? What remains true after the emotional intensity decreases? These questions do not invalidate your intuition. They refine it. Fear often changes its argument. It searches for new reasons to remain afraid. Intuition tends to remain more consistent. After you calm down, sleep, pray, write, or step away, the same simple understanding may remain. This does not feel aligned. I need more information. I should not rush. I need to speak honestly. That inconsistency matters. Intuition does not always reveal the entire future. Sometimes it only identifies the next responsible step. Ask the question. Wait another day. Read the agreement carefully. Have the conversation. Do not ignore the pattern. You may not receive the complete answer, but you may receive enough clarity for the next wise move. This is why slowing down matters. Fear wants speed. Discernment needs space. Before making an important decision from a strong emotional reaction, pause when possible. Write down what happened. Separate facts from assumptions. Notice whether the message becomes clearer or more chaotic over time. Your intuition is not meant to replace logic. It works with observation, experience, reason, values, evidence, time. Logic asks, what are the facts? Intuition asks, what am I noticing beneath the obvious? Experience asks, what pattern have I seen before? Wisdom asks, what response is most aligned with my values? All of these belong in the decision. Self-trust does not mean believing you will always interpret everything correctly. It means trusting yourself to pause, examine, adjust, and correct course when necessary. You may misread something. You may make a decision and later understand it differently. That does not mean you can never trust yourself. It means discernment is a skill, and skills become clearer through practice. Begin with small decisions. Before asking everyone else, pause and ask, what do I already know? Notice the first simple response before the mind begins building arguments. Then examine it. Does it align with the facts? With your values? With the pattern in front of you? Does it remain after the emotional intensity passes? Your intuition has not disappeared. Maybe waiting beneath urgency, beneath fear, beneath other people's opinions, beneath the demand to know everything now. You do not recover it by chasing more signs. You recover it by becoming more present, more observant, more honest, and more willing to accept truth even when it contradicts what you wanted. Ask yourself, when I say, I have a feeling, what usually follows? A simple awareness, or a chain of frightening possibilities? Am I noticing evidence, or predicting the future? Does the message remain after I become calmer? Am I seeking clarity, or searching for confirmation? Because intuition is not always the loudest voice. Sometimes it is the sentence that remains after every other voice has exhausted itself. Chapter 7. Emotions are messages, not commands. Many women were taught to distrust their emotions. Others were taught to obey them completely. Neither approach creates emotional wisdom. One woman suppresses everything. She swallows her anger, minimizes her sadness, hides her fear, pretends not to care. Another woman treats every feeling as unquestionable truth. If she feels rejected, she assumes rejection is happening. If she feels suspicious, she assumes someone is lying. If she feels angry, she reacts immediately. If she feels afraid, she assumes danger must be present. One woman abandons her emotions. The other gives them complete authority. Emotional maturity requires a different relationship with feeling. Your emotions deserve attention. but they do not always deserve control. They contain information. They do not always contain instructions. Anger may reveal that something feels unfair, that a boundary has been crossed, that resentment has been building. But anger does not automatically mean you should attack. Fear may reveal a real risk, or it may reveal uncertainty, an old wound, or the discomfort of growth. But fear does not automatically mean you should run. Sadness may reveal loss, disappointment, or loneliness. But sadness does not mean you are permanently broken. Jealousy may reveal insecurity, comparison, or an unmet desire. But jealousy does not give you permission to control another person. Guilt may reveal that you acted against your values. But guilt can also appear when you begin disappointing people who were comfortable with your lack of boundaries. Emotions speak. Wisdom interprets. Honoring an emotion is not the same as obeying the impulse it creates. You can acknowledge anger without sending the message immediately. You can feel fear without canceling the opportunity. You can notice jealousy without making an accusation. You can experience sadness without deciding that nothing will improve. You can miss someone without returning to a relationship that damaged your peace. A feeling can be real without every thought attached to it being true. Suppose someone does not respond to your message. You feel anxious. The anxiety is real. But the thought, "They are ignoring me because I do not matter," is an interpretation. You do not yet know why they have not responded. The emotion tells you that the uncertainty affected you. It does not automatically explain the silence. Emotional wisdom begins by separating three things: what happened, what you felt, what you concluded. What happened? They did not respond today. What you felt? I felt anxious and unimportant. What you concluded? They do not care about me. The first is an observation. The second is an emotional experience. The third is a story that may need more evidence. This separation does not dismiss the feeling. Prevents pain from becoming premature certainty. Emotions often move in two unhealthy directions: suppression or flooding. Suppression says, "I should not feel this. I need to get over it. I must stay strong." Flooding says, "This feeling is the entire truth. I feel abandoned, so I have been abandoned. I feel afraid, so this must be dangerous. I feel hopeless, so nothing can change." Suppression rejects the emotion. Flooding becomes the emotion. Emotional maturity creates a third option: witnessing. You notice the feeling. Name it. Allow it to exist. Then explore what it may be revealing. Witnessing says, "Anger is present." Not, "I am an angry person." Fear is present. Not, "Fear understands the whole situation." Sadness is present. Not, "My life will always feel this way." This small change in language creates space. You are not denying the emotion, but you are also not reducing yourself to it. That space is where choice becomes possible. Imagine that someone disappoints you. Your first response is anger. You want to confront, withdraw, send a sharp message. Before reacting, pause. Not because the anger is wrong, because it may be protecting something more vulnerable. What is beneath this anger? Perhaps disappointment, humiliation, fear, the pain of not being considered, the feeling that an old pattern is repeating. Anger is often the emotion standing at the door. Behind it, there may be a quieter wound. When you identify the deeper feeling, your communication becomes more accurate. Instead of, "You never care about me," you may say, "When this decision was made without including me, I felt dismissed." Instead of, "You always ruin everything," you may say, "When plans repeatedly change without communication, I feel that my time is not being respected." The goal is not merely to release emotion. It is to understand it well enough to respond clearly. Sometimes you may need to cry, but move, Speak with someone trustworthy, or remain quiet for a while. But not every emotion should be communicated at its highest intensity. Sometimes the wisest response is, "I need time to understand what I am feeling before we discuss this." That is not avoidance. It is emotional responsibility. When emotion is intense, ask 2 questions. What does this feeling want me to do? What response would protect my dignity and support the life I want? Anger may want you to punish. Wisdom may ask you to set a boundary. Fear may want you to disappear. Wisdom may ask you to gather more information. Sadness may want you to isolate. Wisdom may ask you to rest and reach out to someone safe. Jealousy may want you to control. Wisdom may ask you to examine comparison, insecurity, or neglected desires. This is how emotions become guides instead of rulers. It is also important to remember that self-awareness should not become self-blame. Sometimes you are reacting to real mistreatment. Someone may be dishonest, dismissive, manipulative, or disrespectful. You can ask, "What is this activating in me?" And also, "What does this person's behavior reveal?" Both questions matter. Without the first, you may repeat unconscious patterns. Without the second, you may take responsibility for harm you did not create. Many women suppress emotion because they fear it will never end. They believe that if they start crying, they may lose control. If they admit their anger, it may consume them. If they acknowledge grief, they may never recover. So they remain busy, productive, distracted. But denied emotions often return indirectly, as irritability, exhaustion, sarcasm, overthinking, emotional distance, unexpected tears, or reactions that seem larger than the current event. Today may not be the whole reason. It may simply have opened the door to everything that was never expressed. This is why emotions need regular attention. Not only when they become impossible to ignore. At the end of the day, ask, "What did I feel today?" Not only, "What did I accomplish?" Perhaps you felt disappointed, relieved, lonely, proud, overwhelmed, hopeful. Name the emotion before trying to fix it. The more accurately you name what you feel, the more accurately you can respond. What you call tiredness may be disappointment. What you call stress may be fear. What you call indifference may be grief. What you call anger may be the pain of not feeling valued. Different emotions require different forms of care. Fatigue may need rest. Loneliness may need connection. Anger may need honest communication. Grief may need time and gentleness. Overwhelm may need fewer demands. When everything is called stress, the real need remains hidden. The purpose of emotional healing is not to remain calm all the time. That is not realistic. Healing means staying connected to yourself while the emotion is present. You can feel without disappearing, pause without suppressing, express without attacking, experience pain without turning it into identity, and avoid making a permanent decision from a temporary emotional state. Your feelings do not make you weak. But refusing to understand them gives them hidden power. An emotion you acknowledge can be explored. An emotion you deny may begin directing your behavior from the shadows. Try asking, "What am I feeling? What happened before it appeared? What need, value, or wound might it be revealing? What response would honor the emotion without allowing it to control me?" Healing begins when you stop asking only, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" and begin asking, "What is this feeling trying to show me?" Not every emotion requires a conversation. Not every emotion requires a decision. Some need action. Some need expression. Some need comfort. Some need time. And some simply need permission to pass through. You do not have to fear your emotional life. You can become its witness, its interpreter, and its protector. Chapter 8. Creativity is a form of life energy. A woman can survive without creating, but she rarely feels fully alive. Creativity is not limited to painting, writing, singing, or making art. It is the ability to take something that exists only inside you and give it a form. A meal prepared with intention, a peaceful corner in your home, a new idea, business, garden, a meaningful conversation, personal ritual, a solution no one else had considered, a vision for the next stage of your life. Feminine energy is naturally creative because it receives, transforms, and gives birth to something new. Takes an experience and gives it meaning. Takes pain and transforms it into wisdom. It takes an empty space and turns it into a home. It takes a difficult season and creates a new identity from what was learned. But creativity requires space. And survival mode leaves very little space available. When you are constantly managing responsibilities, anticipating problems, and responding to other people's needs, the mind becomes focused on only 3 questions. What must be done? What problem must be solved? What danger must be prevented? This focus may help you survive a difficult season. But when it becomes permanent, imagination begins to disappear. You stop asking, what would inspire me? What would I enjoy creating? What would make my life feel more beautiful? Instead, every activity must be useful, productive, necessary, justifiable. Even rest begins to need a purpose. And slowly, life can start to feel gray. You may believe you are bored, but perhaps you are underexpressed. You may believe you need to escape your entire life, but perhaps part of you simply needs somewhere to move. Somewhere to speak, somewhere to create. Think about who you were before everything became so serious. What did you enjoy before responsibility occupied every available space? Did you sing, dance, write, cook slowly, decorate your room, take photographs, create stories, work with your hands, spend time in nature, learn new things simply because they fascinated you? Maybe you stopped because life became busy. Maybe someone criticized what you created. Maybe you decided you were not talented enough. Or perhaps you convinced yourself that creative activities were unproductive. But creativity is not valuable only when it becomes a career or earns money. Its value is also emotional and spiritual. It gives your inner world a place to exist. It allows feelings to move instead of remaining trapped inside you. It reconnects you with curiosity, beauty, and possibility. When you create, you are no longer only reacting to life. You are participating in it. You are saying, something new can still come through me. This message is especially important for a woman recovering from survival mode. Survival says, repeat what is safe. Creativity says, explore what is possible. Survival focuses on preventing loss. Creativity imagines what can be born. You do not need to become an artist. You do not need expensive materials. And you do not need to show anyone what you create. Begin privately and begin small. Rearrange one corner of your home. Write one page without judging whether it is good. Prepare a meal with attention instead of rushing through it. Move your body to a song you love. Plant something. Choose colors that make you feel alive. Create a simple morning or evening ritual. The result does not need to be perfect. Perfection belongs to performance. Creation belongs to expression. The purpose is not to impress anyone. It is to remember what it feels like to bring your inner world into form. And sometimes what you create will reveal something you did not know you were feeling. A sentence appears. A memory rises. A new desire becomes clear. An idea for your future begins forming. This is why creativity can also become a spiritual practice. It creates a quiet space in which guidance, meaning, and inspiration can emerge. Not through force, through attention. Creativity is not a reward you receive after completing every responsibility. If you wait until everything is finished, you may wait forever. There will always be another task, another request, another problem that could occupy your time. You must intentionally make room for the part of you that exists beyond duty, because you are not only the woman who solves problems. You are also the woman who imagines, transforms, builds, expresses, and creates. Your feminine energy begins to return when life is no longer only something you manage. It becomes something you are willing to shape. Ask yourself, what did I once love creating that I abandoned when life became difficult? And what small part of it could I bring back this week? Do not ask whether it will be productive. Ask whether it will make you feel present, because creativity is one of the ways your spirit reminds you. You were not placed here only to survive. You were also placed here to bring something into the world that could not exist in exactly the same way without you. Chapter 9. Spiritual exhaustion and emotional overgiving. Some women are not only physically tired, they are emotionally and spiritually exhausted. They may sleep, take a day off, spend time alone, and still feel as though something inside them has not recovered. This kind of exhaustion often appears when a woman has spent too much time carrying what does not belong entirely to her. She absorbs the emotional atmosphere around her. She notices tension before anyone speaks. She senses when someone is upset. She listens to everyone's problems, carries family conflicts, tries to prevent arguments, feels responsible for making people feel better, and rarely creates enough space to process what all of this is doing to her. She becomes the emotional container for everyone around her. People arrive with their fear, anger, confusion, relationship problems, financial stress, family drama, and she listens, advises, comforts, explains, encourages. Then the conversation ends, but the emotional weight remains inside her. This can make a woman feel heavy without knowing why. She may wake up feeling calm and lose all her energy after one conversation. She may enter a room in a good mood and leave feeling anxious, tense, or emotionally drained. She may spend hours thinking about a problem that is not hers to solve. And because she is sensitive, compassionate, or spiritually aware, she may believe this is simply part of caring. But caring and carrying are not the same thing. You can care about someone without carrying their entire emotional world. You can listen without becoming responsible for the outcome. You can offer support without making another person's healing your personal assignment. Spiritual exhaustion often begins when compassion loses discernment. You begin believing that being a good person means always being available, always understanding, always forgiving, always making room. Even when the other person repeatedly brings chaos into your life, you may feel guilty for creating distance, guilty for ending a draining conversation, guilty for not answering immediately, guilty for admitting that someone's presence affects your peace. But guilt does not always mean you are doing something wrong. Sometimes guilt appears because you are doing something new. You may be interrupting a pattern in which your value was connected to how much emotional weight you could carry. Perhaps you learned that love meant sacrifice, that spirituality meant endless tolerance, that forgiveness required continued access, that compassion meant never turning anyone away. But compassion without discernment can become self-erasure. It asks you to disappear so that someone else can remain comfortable. It asks you to absorb consequences that belong to another adult. It asks you to keep giving long after love has turned into depletion. True compassion includes truth. Sometimes truth says, I care about you, but I cannot keep having this same conversation when nothing changes. I understand that you are hurting, but I cannot become responsible for your choices. I forgive you, but I still need distance. I can support you, but I cannot rescue you. These statements are not spiritually cold. They are honest. You can understand someone's pain without allowing that pain to dominate your life. You can recognize why a person behaves destructively without continuing to accept the destruction. You can pray for someone without becoming their savior. You can love someone and still return their responsibilities to them. This is especially important for women who consider themselves highly sensitive, empathic, or intuitive. Sensitivity can be a gift. It allows you to notice emotional details, feel compassion deeply, recognize when something is unspoken, and connect with others in meaningful ways. But sensitivity without boundaries can become chronic emotional exposure. You begin taking in more than you can process. You confuse noticing an emotion with being responsible for resolving it. Someone is disappointed, and you immediately change your decision. Someone is angry, and you assume you must restore peace. Someone is struggling, and you put your own life on hold. But another person's discomfort is not always a call for you to intervene. Sometimes people need to experience their own emotions, make their own choices, face their own consequences, and discover their own strength. When you rescue someone every time discomfort appears, you may unintentionally prevent them from developing the abilities they need. Meanwhile, you become more tired. They remain dependent, and the relationship becomes built around your constant emotional labor. Sensitivity, therefore, requires boundaries around attention. Not because everyone around you is toxic, not because you should become suspicious or emotionally closed, but because attention is a limited resource. Where your attention repeatedly goes, your emotional life follows. If you spend hours listening to conflict, gossip, fear, and crisis, those emotions begin occupying your inner world. If the first thing you consume in the morning is alarming news, arguments, or other people's problems, your nervous system begins the day in reaction. If every conversation revolves around what is wrong, you may gradually lose your ability to notice what is still good. What you repeatedly allow into your awareness becomes part of the atmosphere inside you. This is why spiritual hygiene matters. It does not need to become mysterious or complicated. It is not necessarily about performing elaborate rituals. Sometimes spiritual hygiene is practical. It means reducing unnecessary emotional exposure, ending conversations that repeatedly become destructive, refusing to participate in gossip, taking time alone after an intense interaction, writing down what you feel so you can separate your emotions from someone else's, praying for clarity rather than continuing to mentally carry the situation, cleaning and organizing your physical environment, sleeping adequately, spending time in silence, moving your body, limiting content that leaves you anxious, angry, or hopeless, and becoming more intentional about who receives access to your attention. You can also create a simple practice after emotionally intense encounters. Pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? Was I feeling this before the conversation? What belongs to me? What belongs to the other person? Is there any responsible action I need to take? If not, am I willing to release this? You may imagine placing the situation back into the hands of the person, life, or God. Not with indifference, with humility, a recognition that you are not responsible for controlling every outcome. One question can begin changing the way you live. Is this mine to carry? No. Do I care? You may care deeply. The question is whether carrying the burden is truly your responsibility. Is this problem asking for your direct action? Or are you becoming involved because you feel uncomfortable watching someone struggle? Is this person asking for support? Or repeatedly using you to avoid facing their own choices? Are you helping from love? Or from fear, guilt, or the need to feel necessary? Not every problem you notice is your assignment. Not every suffering person is yours to save. Not every disagreement requires you to become the mediator. Not every emotional crisis requires immediate access to your time. And not every person who needs help is ready to receive the kind of help that creates change. Sometimes preserving your energy is not selfish. It is responsible. Because when you give from depletion, generosity begins turning into resentment. You listen but no longer with patience. You help but feel invisible. You say yes, then become angry that no one noticed you wanted to say no. Giving from love feels different, contains choice. You know what you can offer. You know when to stop. You remain connected to yourself while caring for someone else. Your feminine energy needs this balance. It needs connection but also solitude. Compassion but also discernment. Giving but also restoration. You were not created to become an emotional storage place for everyone you love. You can be present without absorbing. Supportive without rescuing. Compassionate without disappearing. Ask yourself, whose emotions have I been carrying as though they were my responsibility? Which conversations consistently leave me depleted? Where am I giving from love? And where am I giving from guilt? What would change if I believed that protecting my energy was part of my spiritual responsibility? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back. Allow another person to face their own path. And return your attention to the life that has also been entrusted to you. If you want more videos that connect spiritual awareness with real emotional patterns, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. This journey is not about escaping life or becoming emotionally unavailable. It is about learning how to remain loving without losing yourself. And in the next chapter, we will explore something many exhausted women struggle to recognize: the difference between genuine rest and emotional escape. Chapter 10. The sacred difference between rest and escape. Rest restores you. Escape numbs you. From the outside, they can look almost identical. Watching television, scrolling through social media, sleeping longer than usual, canceling plans, staying home, avoiding responsibilities for a few hours. But the internal effect is very different. After genuine rest, you usually feel more present. Your thoughts become clearer. Your body feels less tense. You have more patience. You feel slightly more connected to yourself and to life. After escape, you may feel temporarily distracted. But when the distraction ends, the emotional weight is still there. Sometimes it feels even heavier. You may feel numb, restless, guilty, disconnected, or frustrated because the activity consumed your time without giving you real relief. This does not mean watching television or scrolling online is always harmful. Entertainment can be enjoyable, can help the mind unwind. The question is not only what you are doing, it is what you are using it for. Are you choosing the activity because it relaxes you, or because you cannot tolerate being alone with what you feel? Are you sleeping because your body needs recovery, or because waking life feels emotionally overwhelming? Are you taking time alone to reconnect with yourself, or withdrawing because you do not want to face a conversation, decision, or truth? Rest says, I need to replenish myself. Escape says, I do not want to feel this right now. Both responses are human. Sometimes distraction gives us a necessary pause. But when escape becomes the only way you deal with discomfort, the emotions beneath it remain unresolved. Many women do not know how to rest because stopping allows buried feelings to rise. As long as they remain busy, they can avoid the loneliness, the disappointment, the anger, the grief, the uncertainty, the questions they have been postponing. Busyness becomes an emotional shield. There is always another task, another person to help, another room to clean, another message to answer, another problem to solve. Then, when everything becomes quiet, the inner world becomes louder. You may suddenly realize how tired you are, how lonely you feel, how angry you have become, or how disconnected you are from the life you are living. So instead of remaining in the silence, you reach for a screen, food, noise, work, sleep, or endless information. This is understandable. Silence can be uncomfortable when it introduces you to parts of yourself you have been avoiding. But constant distraction does not create peace. It only postpones the meeting. Feminine restoration requires a different kind of rest. Rest that reconnects rather than disconnects. Rest that allows your body to soften, your thoughts to settle, and your emotions to become understandable. This may mean lying down for a few minutes without holding your phone, taking a slow bath without rushing toward the next task, sitting outside and allowing yourself to notice the air, the light, and the sounds around you, listening to music without doing anything else, walking without measuring distance, speed, or calories, praying without asking for a solution, sitting in the presence of God without turning the moment into another list of requests. Sometimes rest is simply allowing yourself to exist without improving, producing, fixing, or proving anything. For a woman accustomed to survival mode, this can feel surprisingly difficult. The body stops, but the mind continues working. You remember unfinished tasks. Feel guilty about what you are not doing. Think about the people who may need you. You may even create work in order to escape the discomfort of doing nothing. This reveals an important belief. Part of you may still associate worth with productivity. If you are doing something, you feel useful. If you are useful, you feel valuable. But when you stop, the question appears: who am I when I am not helping, accomplishing, or taking care of someone? True rest begins to answer that question. You are still worthy, still meaningful, still deserving of care, even when you are not producing anything. Rest is not a reward for finishing every responsibility. If you wait until everything is completed, you may never rest. There will always be another task. Rest is part of how you remain capable of living, loving, creating, and serving without losing yourself. At first, intentional rest may feel unproductive, but then you may begin noticing subtle changes. An idea returns. An emotion becomes clearer. A problem that seemed impossible begins to look simpler. Your breathing slows. Your body releases tension you did not know it was holding. You remember what you need. You recognize that you have been saying yes when you wanted to say no. Or you suddenly see the answer to a question you were trying too hard to solve. This is why rest is not emptiness. It is integration. The mind processes what it has experienced. The body begins repairing the cost of stress. The inner life reorganizes itself. Rest creates room for clarity. And clarity rarely arrives while you are running from one obligation to another. There is also a spiritual dimension to rest. In many spiritual traditions, rest is not treated as laziness or failure. It is considered sacred. A recognition that life is not sustained through human effort alone. Rest requires trust. Trust that the world can continue turning while you pause. Trust that you do not have to control every detail. Trust that your value is not measured only by output. And trust that being still does not make you irresponsible. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is stop forcing. Stop searching. Stop demanding an immediate answer. And allow enough silence for truth to become visible. But sacred rest is not avoidance. If there is a conversation you need to have, rest should help you prepare for it, not postpone it forever. If there is a decision you need to make, rest should help you approach it with greater clarity, not become a hiding place. Rest eventually returns you to life. Escape keeps you moving away from it. A simple way to recognize the difference is to ask, how do I feel after this? More present or more disconnected? Restored or merely distracted? Clearer or more confused? Ready to engage with life again? Or desperate for another way to avoid it? Your answer will tell you whether the activity is nourishing you or only numbing you. You can also ask, what am I afraid I might feel if I become still? Perhaps the answer is sadness, loneliness, anger, disappointment. You do not need to process everything at once. Begin gently. Allow 5 quiet minutes, then 10. Notice what appears without judging it. Write 1 honest sentence. Take 1 slow breath. Offer 1 sincere prayer. True rest does not require a perfect routine. It requires permission. Permission to stop before exhaustion becomes collapse. Permission to exist without performing usefulness. Permission to receive the stillness your body has been asking for. You are not valuable because you remain constantly available. You are not worthy because you carry more than everyone else. You are not loved because you never need anything. You have value because you are alive. That may sound simple, but for a woman who has spent years earning her place through service, it can feel revolutionary. Rest is not abandoning your purpose. It is remembering that you are more than the work you perform. And in the next chapter, we will explore another sacred practice that survival mode often misunderstands. Surrender. Not as giving up, but as releasing the struggle against what you can no longer control. Chapter 11. Surrender does not mean giving up. Surrender is one of the most misunderstood spiritual ideas. Some people hear the word and imagine resignation, passivity, defeat, silence, allowing life to decide everything while they do nothing. But genuine surrender is not the absence of action. It is the end of useless resistance. It is recognizing the moment when your effort is no longer creating change and has begun creating suffering. Resistance says, "This should not be happening. This person should be different. This door must open. This relationship must work. My life must follow the plan I created." Surrender says, "This is what is happening. What is the wisest response now?" That question does not take away your power. It returns your power to the present. Resistance keeps your energy trapped in an argument with reality. Surrender helps you respond to the reality that actually exists. There is a difference between fighting for something meaningful and fighting against something that has already revealed its truth. Healthy perseverance has movement. There is effort on both sides. Progress may be slow, but something is changing. Useless resistance feels different. You repeat the same conversation, make the same request, accept the same apology, hope for the same transformation, and return to the same disappointment. At some point, trying harder does not prove your love. It only delays your acceptance. A woman may spend years waiting for someone to change. She searches for explanations, reads about their emotional wounds, tries different ways of communicating, offers more patience, more understanding, more time, more forgiveness. She may pray for signs that the relationship will finally become what she hoped it could be. And because there are occasional good moments, she continues believing the transformation is close. But isolated moments are not always evidence of lasting change. A pattern must be evaluated by what happens repeatedly, not only by what happens after a crisis. Someone may apologize beautifully, promise everything, become attentive for a few days, then return to the same behavior once the fear of losing you passes. Surrender may mean allowing the pattern to speak louder than the promise. It may mean accepting that love cannot perform another person's growth for them. That patience cannot create accountability where accountability is repeatedly avoided. That your compassion cannot make someone ready for the relationship they say they want. Surrender is not always staying and accepting more. Sometimes surrender is leaving, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped fighting reality. You may still love the person, miss them, understand their pain, hope they heal, and still recognize that remaining connected is damaging your peace. Love and access are not the same thing. You can love someone and decide they can no longer occupy the same place in your life. This is not punishment. It may be the most honest response available. Surrender can also involve letting go of a future that existed mainly in your imagination. The marriage you believed would happen, the family you thought you would build, the business that was supposed to succeed, the identity you believed you would have by a certain age. The life you expected after making all the right decisions. Sometimes what hurts most is not only what ended. It is the future that ended with it. You are grieving something that never fully happened but that felt emotionally real. This grief deserves acknowledgement. You are not foolish for having hoped. You are human. But healing requires distinguishing between honoring a dream and remaining imprisoned by it. There are moments when your energy remains trapped because you are still negotiating with what has already ended. You revisit the conversation. Imagine what you should have said. Think about what they could have done differently. Ask why life did not follow the path you planned. Part of you believes that if you understand enough, you can somehow change the meaning of what happened. But some experiences will never provide a satisfying explanation. You may never understand why someone treated you that way, why they chose dishonesty, why the opportunity disappeared, why the timing was so painful. The mind wants a complete answer because an answer creates the illusion of control. But sometimes peace arrives before understanding, not because the questions no longer matter, because you decide they will no longer control your life. Surrender does not mean approving of what hurt you. It does not mean calling mistreatment a blessing before you have processed the pain. It does not mean pretending the loss was easy. It means refusing to continue the argument inside your body. The argument that says, "It should not have happened. They should have apologized. They should finally recognize what they did. I cannot move forward until I understand." Surrender says, "I wish it had been different, but I will not sacrifice the rest of my life trying to rewrite what has already happened." This is not denial. It is acceptance without approval. You can say, "What happened was wrong," and also, "It happened, and now I must decide how I will live." That second sentence creates movement. Surrender allows grief, allows anger, disappointment, confusion, unanswered questions. It does not demand that you become positive immediately, but it prevents pain from becoming a permanent negotiation with the past. Sometimes surrender happens in layers. You release the person, then realize you still carry the imagined future. You release the future, then discover you are still waiting for an apology. You release the apology, then notice you still want them to regret losing you. This does not mean you have failed. It means letting go is rarely a single moment. It is a series of choices. Each time the mind returns to what should have happened, you gently bring yourself back to what is possible now. One of the deepest forms of surrender is releasing the need for another person to validate your experience. You may want them to say, "Yes, I hurt you. Yes, you deserved better. Yes, what you felt was real." That recognition would matter. But some people do not possess the honesty, humility, or emotional maturity to give it. If your healing depends entirely on their confession, they continue controlling your future. Closure is sometimes a conversation, but not always. Sometimes closure is the moment you believe what the pattern showed you. Sometimes it is accepting that no explanation will make the behavior acceptable. Sometimes it is deciding that the absence of accountability is itself an answer. You stop waiting for another person to give you permission to move forward. This is sacred surrender. Not because the relationship did not matter, but because your life still matters. Spiritually, surrender is often described as trust. But trust does not mean believing that everything you want will happen. It means believing that your life can still hold meaning when it does not. It means allowing a closed door to remain closed long enough to notice another direction. It means praying not only, "Give me this outcome," but also, "Help me recognize what is true. Give me the courage to release what is no longer aligned. Show me where my energy belongs now." Surrender creates space. As long as your hands remain tightly closed around one outcome, you have little capacity to receive anything different. You may be asking for a new beginning while emotionally holding on to what has already ended. You may be praying for peace while continuing to reopen the wound. You may want clarity while avoiding the evidence that contradicts your hope. Surrender opens the hand, not because the hand no longer cared, because it has become tired of holding what cannot be forced to stay. A practical way to begin is to ask, "What am I still trying to make happen? What truth have I already received but resisted? Am I persevering or repeating? What would acceptance ask me to do next?" Perhaps acceptance asks you to have one final honest conversation. Perhaps it asks you to stop having the same conversation. Perhaps it asks you to grieve, seek support, change direction, return an object, delete a message, release a deadline, or stop watching the door for someone who has already chosen another path. You do not need to release everything in one day, but you can stop feeding what keeps you trapped. You can stop searching for new signs that contradict consistent reality. Stop rehearsing imaginary conversations. Stop visiting places, physically or emotionally, that leave you in the same pain, and begin redirecting that energy toward your own life. Surrender is not giving up on love. It is giving up the belief that love must come through one particular person. It is not giving up on your future. It is releasing the demand that your future must look exactly as you once imagined. It is not abandoning hope. It is allowing hope to take a new form. Perhaps the path changed. Perhaps the dream must be rebuilt differently. Perhaps the version of you who created the original plan did not yet know what you know now. There is no shame in changing direction after truth becomes visible. That is not failure. That is wisdom. Ask yourself, what am I emotionally negotiating with that has already ended? What answer am I still waiting for? What might become possible if I stopped demanding that the past be different? Let the questions remain for a moment. Because sometimes surrender is not a dramatic spiritual experience. It is a quiet decision. I will no longer spend today trying to change yesterday. That is sacred surrender. Not giving up on life. Giving up the struggle against what life has already revealed. And in the next chapter, we will explore how relationships expose the places where our energy is still organized around fear, attachment, and old emotional patterns. Chapter 12. Your relationships reveal where your energy is going. Relationships do not only reveal who other people are. They reveal what happens inside you when love, uncertainty, desire, closeness, and rejection appear. You may be calm and confident in most areas of your life. You make decisions at work, solve problems, manage responsibilities, support yourself. But when someone you care about becomes distant, something changes. Your confidence weakens. Your thoughts accelerate. You begin analyzing messages, replaying conversations, searching for the moment when everything shifted. You may feel independent in your career and emotionally dependent in love, confident with friends and deeply insecure when romantic attention becomes uncertain. This does not mean your confidence is false. It means relationships activate emotional layers that other areas of life do not reach. Work may activate your competence. Friendship may activate your warmth. But romantic connection can activate your deepest fears about being chosen, valued, replaced, or abandoned. Relationships bring hidden emotional patterns to the surface. They reveal what your nervous system has learned to associate with love. For some women, love feels like safety. For others, love feels like waiting, uncertainty, effort, emotional intensity, or the constant fear that something meaningful could disappear. Perhaps you are drawn to emotionally unavailable people, not because you enjoy suffering, but because distance feels familiar. You may have learned early that affection was inconsistent, sometimes available, sometimes withdrawn, sometimes warm, sometimes impossible to reach. So now, when someone gives you steady attention, part of you may feel suspicious. Calm can seem boring. Consistency can feel unfamiliar. A person who communicates clearly may not create the emotional intensity you once associated with attraction. But someone who is unpredictable keeps your attention constantly engaged. You wait for the message, the apology, the return, the next moment of affection. The relationship creates powerful emotional highs and lows. And those highs may feel like passion. But sometimes what feels like chemistry is the nervous system responding to uncertainty. The connection feels intense because you never feel completely secure inside it. This does not mean every intense relationship is unhealthy. Attraction can be powerful. Love can awaken deep emotion. But intensity alone does not prove compatibility, maturity, or spiritual purpose. Sometimes intensity simply reveals activation. Your body recognizes a familiar emotional pattern and says, "I know this feeling." But familiar does not always mean safe. And it certainly does not always mean destined. You may also overgive at the beginning of relationships. You offer time, attention, understanding, emotional support. You adjust your routine. Make yourself available. Try to become the safe place the other person has never had. You may believe this generosity proves the depth of your love. But sometimes overgiving is an attempt to create security. Part of you believes, if I love them well enough, they will not leave. If I become essential, they will choose me. If I understand all their wounds, they will eventually trust me. If I give more, the relationship will become stable. Giving becomes a way of managing uncertainty. But love cannot be secured through exhaustion. When you give more than the relationship has earned, you may create emotional investment before true trust has developed. You become attached not only to the person, but to everything you have already given. Then leaving becomes more difficult. You think, after everything I have done, this has to mean something. And it does mean something. It means you cared. But your effort alone cannot prove that the relationship is healthy. Relationships reveal where feminine qualities may have become distorted by fear. Receptivity becomes waiting. Instead of receiving mutual love, you wait for someone to become ready. Devotion becomes overgiving. You keep proving loyalty to someone who has not created emotional security. Compassion becomes rescuing. You focus on their wounds until you forget the effect of their behavior. Intuition becomes hypervigilance. You monitor every message, silence, and change in tone. Patience becomes tolerating what repeatedly hurts you. Spiritual hope becomes denial. You keep searching for signs that contradict what consistent behavior is showing you. This is why awareness matters. You cannot transform a pattern you continue calling destiny. Not every powerful connection is meant to last. Not every person who awakens something inside you is meant to stay. Some connections reveal a wound, belief, pattern, a part of yourself you have neglected. They may be significant without being permanent. Spiritual language can sometimes make unhealthy attachment more difficult to release. You may call someone a soul connection, divine partner, a person sent to awaken you. And perhaps the relationship did awaken something. But awakening does not automatically mean lifelong compatibility. A person can enter your life, reveal a pattern, and still be unable to build a healthy relationship with you. The lesson may be real. The connection may be meaningful. And the relationship may still need to end. Meaning should not be used to excuse mistreatment. Spiritual depth should not require emotional confusion. A relationship does not become sacred simply because it is difficult to leave. Sometimes the difficulty comes from attachment, unfinished grief, or the hope of finally receiving what has repeatedly been withheld. This is why a healthier question is not, "Why do I feel so strongly?" Strong feelings can arise for many reasons: desire, fear, loneliness, familiarity, chemistry, hope, unresolved pain. A more revealing question is, what happens to me inside this connection? Do I become more grounded, more honest, more peaceful, more connected to my body, values, and purpose? Can I remain myself? Can I express a need without fearing punishment or withdrawal? Do I feel free to observe the relationship honestly? Or do I become confused, obsessive, fearful, emotionally exhausted, constantly focused on earning reassurance? Do I neglect my friendships, rest, creativity, or spiritual life? Does my attention remain centered on what the other person is thinking, feeling, or doing? These questions reveal where your energy is going. A healthy relationship requires attention, but it should not consume your entire inner world. You should not have to spend every day interpreting mixed signals. Your energy should not be trapped in constant emotional investigation. A connection may have challenges and still be healthy. Misunderstandings happen. People become stressed. Old fears can appear. But healthy relationships create room for repair. You can discuss what happened, receive a clear response, observe genuine effort, and gradually regain safety. In an unhealthy pattern, the same wound is reopened without real repair. The conversation may happen, but nothing changes. The apology arrives, but the behavior repeats. You receive enough affection to remain hopeful, but not enough consistency to feel secure. This keeps your energy attached to possibility. You are not relating only to who the person is. You are relating to who they might become. And potential can become one of the strongest forms of emotional attachment. You see the tenderness beneath their distance, the good person beneath their avoidance, the relationship that could exist if they healed, committed, communicated, or finally recognized your value. But a relationship must be lived in the present, not only in the imagined future. You can acknowledge someone's potential without building your life around it. You can understand why they struggle without accepting an arrangement that repeatedly harms you. Your compassion should help you see the whole person, not make you disappear from the picture. Relationships also reveal whether you know how to receive love that does not require a struggle. When care is steady, do you relax? Or begin searching for what might be wrong? When someone communicates clearly, do you believe them? Or feel less attracted because there is no emotional chase? When a relationship becomes calm, do you enjoy the stability? Or create conflict because intensity feels more familiar? These questions are not accusations. They are invitations to notice what your system has learned. Some women do not fear unhealthy love. They fear healthy love because healthy love asks them to be seen. There is no chase to hide behind. No crisis to solve. No unavailable person to rescue. They must allow themselves to receive, to communicate directly, to trust gradually, to participate instead of proving. That can feel vulnerable. Healthy love does not remove every insecurity. It will not prevent every disagreement. Cannot guarantee that loss will never happen. But it should not require you to abandon your center. You should be able to care deeply and still recognize yourself. To love someone and remain connected to your purpose. To support them without becoming responsible for their entire emotional life. To miss them without losing the ability to function. To experience uncertainty without surrendering your dignity. The purpose of examining your relationships is not to blame yourself for everything that went wrong. Other people are responsible for their honesty, choices, and behavior. Awareness is not self-blame. It is the recovery of choice. When you recognize the pattern, you can respond differently. You can slow down before over-investing. Observe consistency before offering deep access. Ask direct questions instead of interpreting every signal. Notice whether actions support the words. And return your attention to yourself when it begins revolving entirely around another person. Ask yourself, where does my energy go when I become emotionally attached? Do I become more connected to my life? Or less? Am I responding to the person in front of me, or trying to repair an old wound through them? Does this relationship allow my feminine energy to expand? Or does it keep me in survival mode? Your relationships can become mirrors, not mirrors that determine your worth. Mirrors that reveal where healing, discernment, and deeper self-trust are still needed. And once you can see what a connection awakens inside you, you no longer have to call every pattern fate. You can call it information, then choose what you will do with it. Because healthy love may challenge you, but it should not require you to disappear. And in the next chapter, we will explore how to return to softness without returning to the version of yourself who ignored warning signs in order to keep love. Chapter 13. Returning to softness without losing wisdom. Many women fear softness because they associate it with the person they were before they were hurt. Trusting, open, hopeful, emotionally available, perhaps a little naive. They remember the woman who believed promises too quickly, who gave second chances before seeing real change, who explained away warning signs because she wanted to believe the best, who stayed open even when the other person had not demonstrated that they were safe. So after the betrayal, disappointment, or abandonment, she made a decision. I will never be that woman again. She became more guarded, more analytical, more independent. She stopped expressing too much, stopped trusting easily, stopped allowing people close enough to affect her. This protection may have been necessary for a season. It gave her space to recover, taught her to observe, question, to recognize patterns she once ignored. But a defense that protects you during healing can eventually become a prison. You may reach a point where the danger is gone, but the armor remains. Someone approaches you with sincerity. You assume there must be a hidden motive. Someone offers affection. You prepare for its withdrawal. A relationship begins to feel peaceful. You become suspicious because peace feels unfamiliar. You may tell yourself that you are being wise. But sometimes wisdom and fear can wear similar clothing. Fear says, never trust anyone again. Wisdom says, allow trust to grow through evidence. Fear says, keep everyone at a distance. Wisdom says, let access be earned gradually. Fear says, do not show emotion. Wisdom says, share your emotions with people who have demonstrated care and responsibility. Fear closes every door. Wisdom decides which doors should open, when, and for whom. Healing does not ask you to return to innocence. It does not ask you to forget what happened. It does not require you to become the woman who trusted without observing. Healing asks you to create informed softness. Softness with discernment. Warmth with awareness. Compassion with self-respect. Openness supported by wisdom. You can be warm and still observe. You can enjoy someone's presence without immediately deciding who they will become in your life. You can be compassionate and still say no. You can understand someone's pain without accepting behavior that damages you. You can forgive and still choose distance. Forgiveness may free your heart without restoring someone's access. You can trust gradually, not because everyone is dangerous, because meaningful trust deserves time. You can remain open while allowing actions to reveal character. The woman you were before pain may have trusted words. The woman you are becoming watches whether words and behavior agree. She does not demand perfection, but she notices patterns. She listens to explanations, then observes whether anything changes. She allows people to be human, but she does not repeatedly abandon herself to accommodate their humanity. This is not coldness. It is wisdom. Softness is not the absence of boundaries. It is the absence of unnecessary hardness. There is a difference. A boundary says, you may come this far but no farther. A wall says, no one will ever come close enough to know me. A boundary protects connection. A wall prevents it. A boundary can move as trust develops. A wall remains in place even when circumstances change. You may have built walls because boundaries once felt impossible. Perhaps saying no led to conflict. Expressing a need led to rejection. Speaking honestly made someone withdraw. So instead of creating limits inside relationships, you began avoiding closeness altogether. Distance felt safer than negotiation. But emotional distance also has a cost. Can prevent hurt. Can also prevent intimacy. You may become so determined not to need anyone that you reject the connection you genuinely desire. You may leave at the first sign of discomfort. Not because the situation is harmful, but because vulnerability has activated fear. You may interpret every imperfection as a warning. every disagreement as incompatibility, every moment of uncertainty as proof that you should escape. This is where discernment becomes essential. Not every uncomfortable moment is a red flag. Sometimes discomfort appears because two people are learning how to communicate. Sometimes it appears because closeness exposes fears you could avoid while alone. The question is not, did this relationship ever make me uncomfortable? The better questions are, can we communicate about what happened? Does the other person listen? Can they accept responsibility? Do their actions change after the conversation? Does this relationship allow honesty and repair? A sincere person may make mistakes, but they do not repeatedly demand that you betray yourself to maintain the connection. A hard woman may push away even those who approach with care. She may test people, assume the worst, withhold affection to maintain control, or expect new relationships to repair wounds they did not create. A wise woman behaves differently. She creates access slowly. She remains curious. She observes. She does not reveal everything immediately, but she does not pretend to feel nothing. She allows trust to develop through consistency. She does not punish new people for the actions of old ones, but she also does not ignore warning signs in the name of love, hope, or spirituality. She understands that love and discernment belong together. Love without discernment can become self-abandonment. Discernment without love can become permanent isolation. The goal is integration. To remain capable of tenderness without becoming blind. To stay open without becoming unprotected. To recognize goodness without inventing it where it does not exist. You do not need to become suspicious of everyone. You need to become loyal to the signals within you. When something feels wrong, investigate. Do not immediately accuse. Do not immediately dismiss the feeling either. Ask questions. Observe patterns. Allow time to reveal what urgency cannot. When something feels safe, allow it to develop slowly. You do not need to destroy a good experience simply because something good once ended. You can appreciate the present without demanding a guarantee about the future. When fear appears, ask, does this fear belong to what is happening now? Or is the past trying to protect me from a pain that has already happened? Perhaps someone forgets to call. The past says, you are being abandoned again. Wisdom says, notice what happened, communicate, then observe whether it becomes a pattern. Perhaps someone expresses affection. The past says, do not believe them. Wisdom says, receive the moment without building your entire future around it. Perhaps a relationship becomes emotionally close. The past says, leave before they can hurt you. Wisdom says, move slowly. Stay connected to yourself. Let trust grow one experience at a time. This is how softness becomes sustainable. Not by removing every protective instinct. Your protective instincts contain valuable information. The goal is to transform automatic defense into conscious discernment. Instead of reacting from the past, you evaluate the present. Instead of closing immediately, you pause. Instead of giving complete access, you allow trust to grow. Instead of ignoring fear, you listen without automatically obeying it. Returning to softness may also mean allowing beauty to affect you again. Letting yourself feel moved by music. Receiving a kind gesture without searching for danger. Expressing affection without feeling embarrassed. Allowing yourself to hope without demanding certainty. Laughing without remembering everything that could go wrong. Softness is not only about relationships. It is a way of meeting life. A willingness to remain emotionally alive after experiences that could have made you permanently closed. That takes courage. It is easy to call yourself healed when no one can reach the vulnerable parts of you. The deeper work begins when you allow connection while remaining loyal to yourself. You do not need to choose between softness and wisdom. Your wisdom can protect your softness. And your softness can prevent wisdom from becoming bitterness. Ask yourself, have I become discerning, or simply unavailable? Am I protecting my peace, or avoiding all emotional risk? Do I allow people to earn my trust, or assume they will eventually betray it? What would softness look like if it no longer required abandoning myself? Perhaps it would look like speaking honestly, receiving affection, trusting slowly, forgiving without forgetting the lesson, allowing hope while keeping your eyes open. You are not returning to the woman you were before the pain. You are becoming someone new. A woman whose heart remains open, but no longer unguarded. A woman who can love without losing her perception. A woman who understands that tenderness is not the opposite of strength. It is strength that no longer needs to prove itself through hardness. And in the next chapter, we will explore what becomes possible when this wiser softness is joined by a deeper form of faith. The ability to trust life again. Chapter 14. Trusting life again. After enough disappointment, hope can begin to feel dangerous. You may believe that expecting less will protect you. If you do not become excited, you cannot be disappointed. If you do not trust, you cannot be betrayed. If you do not hope, you cannot lose. So you lower your expectations, prepare for the worst, question good moments, and remind yourself not to become too attached. This may feel like wisdom, but sometimes it is fear trying to prevent the future from repeating the past. You do not stop wanting beautiful things. You simply stop allowing yourself to believe they could last. A new opportunity appears. Instead of feeling excited, you immediately search for what could go wrong. Someone treats you with kindness. You wonder what they want. A relationship begins peacefully. You wait for the moment when everything will change. Life offers something good, but part of you remains emotionally prepared for loss. This is how the past continues shaping the future. Not always through destiny, through expectation. When you expect disappointment, you may interpret uncertainty as proof that disappointment is already beginning. You may withdraw before someone has the chance to know you. Reject an opportunity because success feels unfamiliar. Or remain so emotionally guarded that you cannot fully receive what is present. This does not mean you create every painful experience through your thoughts. Life is not that simple. People make their own choices. Unexpected events occur. But expectation influences attention. It affects what you notice, what you trust, what you fear, and how you respond when something new appears. Trusting life again does not mean becoming naive. It does not mean believing every person is good. It does not mean assuming nothing painful will ever happen again. And it does not mean calling every disappointment part of a perfect plan before you have allowed yourself to feel it. Trust is not the denial of risk. It is the decision not to let risk become the center of your life. You may not be able to guarantee the outcome, but you can trust your capacity to meet it. This is a more mature form of faith. Immature faith says, nothing bad will happen. Mature faith says, whatever happens, I will not face it as the person I once was. You are not the same woman who entered past experiences without awareness. You know more now. You recognize patterns earlier. You understand the difference between words and consistency. You know how your body responds when something feels unsafe. You are more willing to ask questions, pause, to seek support, to leave when necessary, to admit when something is not working. You are not defenseless. That realization changes everything. You do not need to predict every outcome when you trust your ability to respond. You do not need to control another person completely when you know you can protect your dignity. You do not need guarantees before taking a step when you trust yourself to adjust if new information appears. Self-trust becomes the foundation of life trust. You may not know exactly what is coming, but you know you will listen to yourself. You will not ignore every warning sign to preserve a fantasy. You will not remain indefinitely where your spirit is shrinking. You will ask for help before exhaustion becomes collapse. And if disappointment comes, you will not abandon yourself inside it. This allows the body to loosen its grip. For years, your nervous system may have believed that safety depended on vigilance. Now it begins learning something new. Safety can also come from your ability to respond. You can breathe even without knowing the entire future. You can enjoy a good moment without demanding proof that it will last forever. You can allow hope without turning hope into certainty. You can say, "I want this," and also, "I will be okay if life leads me somewhere different." This is not emotional detachment. It is open-handed hope. You care. You participate. You allow yourself to desire. But you do not make one outcome the condition for your peace. Trusting life again often happens through small experiences. You accept an invitation, share an idea, begin a project, have an honest conversation, let someone help you, return to something you once loved. You take one step without knowing where every step will lead. Then you discover that uncertainty is survivable. Not every risk ends in pain. Not every beginning repeats the past. Not every person is the person who hurt you. Slowly, the nervous system gathers new evidence. You can open without disappearing, receive without becoming dependent, hope without becoming blind, and love without surrendering your center. Trust also means allowing timing to be different from expectation. You may have believed something should have happened by now. A relationship, career change, a new beginning, clear answer. But life does not always follow the schedule created by fear, comparison, or social pressure. Delay does not always mean denial, and speed does not always mean alignment. Sometimes what appears late arrives when you are finally prepared to receive it differently. Not desperately, not from emptiness, but from a more grounded place. Spiritual trust does not ask you to remain passive. You still make decisions, prepare, create, but you stop measuring faith by whether life obeys your plan. You begin measuring it by how deeply you remain connected to yourself when the plan changes. You may pray, "Help me receive what is right, not only what is familiar. Help me recognize what is aligned, even when it looks different from what I expected. Give me courage to participate in life again." This kind of prayer does not demand certainty. It asks for presence. And presence is where feminine energy begins to return. You breathe more deeply, create more freely, receive more comfortably, listen more clearly. You stop using fear as your primary source of guidance. You become less obsessed with preventing pain and more available for meaning, beauty, connection, and possibility. Life begins to feel less like something you must constantly manage, and more like something you are allowed to experience. Ask yourself, where have I confused pessimism with wisdom? What good thing am I afraid to trust because something similar once ended badly? What would I try if I believed I could handle either outcome? And what small step would show my body that the future is not automatically the past? Trust does not return in one dramatic moment. It returns each time you choose presence over prediction, discernment over suspicion, participation over emotional retreat. You do not need to know that everything will work out exactly as you want. You need to remember that whatever happens, you do not have to lose yourself inside it. And in the final chapter, we will bring everything together. Because the feminine awakening is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you are when fear is no longer making every decision. Chapter 15. The Feminine Awakening. A feminine awakening is not a dramatic transformation into a completely different woman. It is not a new personality, perfect routine, softer voice, carefully created appearance. It is a return to the parts of yourself that survival forced you to neglect. The body you stopped listening to, the emotions you stopped honoring, the creativity you postponed, the intuition you learned to doubt, the rest you believed you had to earn, the support you were afraid to receive, the faith that weakened when life did not follow the path you had imagined. For a long time you may have believed that healing meant becoming stronger, more disciplined, more independent, less affected. But perhaps you were already strong. Perhaps what you needed was not more armor. Perhaps you needed permission to remove it when the battle was over. The feminine awakening begins when you recognize that survival was a season. It does not have to become your permanent identity. You can honor the woman who carried everything, the woman who solved the problems, the woman who continued when she wanted to stop. She protected you. She brought you here. But she was never meant to live on constant alert forever. There comes a moment when strength must change its form. Instead of helping you endure more, it helps you choose differently. Instead of helping you suppress your needs, it gives you the courage to express them. Instead of helping you remain in painful situations, it gives you the power to leave. Instead of proving that you can do everything alone, it allows you to receive support without shame. This awakening may begin quietly. You say no to something that repeatedly drains you. Not angrily, not to punish anyone. Simply because you have begun recognizing the value of your energy. You accept help without immediately searching for a way to repay it. You allow a compliment to reach you. You spend an afternoon creating instead of producing. You notice tension in your body and choose to slow down before the body forces you to stop. You stop chasing an answer that life has already given through repeated behavior. You allow yourself to grieve what ended instead of pretending it never mattered. You begin trusting your perceptions again. You listen when something feels wrong. But you also allow something good to develop without immediately assuming it will disappear. These moments may appear small. There may be no dramatic announcement. No visible transformation that everyone around you can immediately recognize. But together, these decisions change your relationship with yourself. You stop living as though your body is only a machine for completing responsibilities. You stop treating emotion as an inconvenience. You stop believing rest must be justified. You stop asking fear to make every decision. You begin returning to presence. And presence is where feminine energy becomes available again. Not because it was missing, because you are finally creating enough internal space to feel it. This awakening will look different for every woman. For one woman, it may mean becoming more expressive after years of emotional silence. For another, it may mean becoming more selective after years of giving herself away. For one, it may mean learning to receive. For another, learning to say no. For one, it may mean allowing herself to rest. For another, returning to the dream she abandoned because responsibility consumed all her energy. There is no single correct expression of feminine energy. It is not a costume every woman must wear in the same way. It is not a rigid role. It is an internal relationship with receptivity, intuition, creativity, emotion, connection, and life itself. The goal is not to remain in feminine energy every second. Life requires different qualities. There will be moments for action, leadership, structure, logic, discipline, clear decisions, protection. There will also be moments for receptivity, intuition, rest, creativity, emotion, reflection, allowing. The healthiest woman is not trapped in one mode. She can move between them. She knows when to act and when to pause, when to pursue and when to receive, when to protect and when to open, when to analyze and when to listen to the quieter wisdom within her. She acts without losing connection. She rests without losing direction. She receives without losing autonomy. She loves without losing herself. She can lead without believing she must control everything. She can be vulnerable without becoming defenseless. She can remain soft without ignoring reality. This is integration. And integration is the deeper feminine code. Not performance, not appearance, not weakness, not dependence. Integration. A way of living in which strength and softness are no longer enemies. Your strength protects what is sacred. Your softness allows you to experience it. Your logic helps you evaluate. Your intuition helps you notice. Your discipline gives your life structure. Your creativity gives that life meaning. Your boundaries protect your energy. Your receptivity allows love, guidance, and support to enter. Nothing has to be rejected. The goal is not to become less powerful. It is to become more whole. A feminine awakening also changes the way you define attraction. You stop measuring your magnetism only by how much attention you receive. You begin noticing how deeply connected you feel to yourself, how peacefully you inhabit your own life, how little you need to chase what cannot meet you, how naturally you begin attracting experiences that match your new internal standards. Your energy changes because your relationship with yourself changes. You are no longer constantly asking, "Will they choose me?" You begin asking, "Does this align with the woman I am becoming?" You are no longer asking, "How can I make this work?" You ask, "Is this relationship, opportunity, or path allowing me to remain connected to myself?" You are no longer impressed only by intensity. You begin valuing clarity, consistency, reciprocity. The awakening is not about becoming irresistible to everyone. It is about no longer being available for everything. You become more intentional about what you allow into your life. Not from superiority, from awareness. You know how much it costs to recover your peace. You are no longer willing to trade it for temporary attention, false promises, or situations that keep your body in survival mode. This does not mean you will never become afraid again. You will. Old reactions may return. You may still overthink, question yourself, feel the urge to control, or become uncomfortable when someone offers genuine support. Awakening does not erase your history. It changes the way you respond when history tries to repeat itself. You notice sooner, pause earlier, return to yourself more quickly. You no longer remain lost inside the pattern for as long as you once did. That is progress, not perfection. Perhaps the woman you are becoming is not completely new. Perhaps she has always been there. Beneath the responsibility, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the fear, waiting for the moment when she would no longer need to hide. Your feminine energy was never truly lost. It became quiet when life became too loud. It withdrew when softness felt unsafe. It waited while you learned strength, boundaries, discernment, and self-trust. And now it can return differently. Not as innocence, as wisdom. Not as dependence, as receptivity. Not as emotional chaos, as emotional depth. Not as weakness, as a strength that no longer needs to remain hard. Ask yourself, what part of me is ready to return? My creativity, my intuition, my capacity to receive, my ability to rest, my willingness to trust life again. Do not try to awaken everything at once. Choose one doorway, one small act that tells your inner world, it is safe to live again. Maybe that act is resting, creating, asking for help, speaking honestly, releasing someone, or allowing yourself to hope. The feminine awakening does not happen when you finally become perfect. It happens when you stop abandoning yourself. When you become willing to remain present with your body, emotions, desires, wisdom, and truth. That is how strength and softness become allies. That is how survival becomes life. And that is how a woman begins returning home to herself. If this video helped you understand yourself more deeply, continue with our personal growth and spiritual development playlist. There you will find more videos about emotional healing, intuition, relationships, self-worth, and spiritual growth. Choose the next video and keep moving forward one step at a time. Your feminine energy was never gone. It was protecting itself. It became quiet when life asked you to be strong for too long. It hid beneath responsibility, control, exhaustion, disappointment, and the belief that you had to carry everything alone. But now you know something important. You do not have to choose between strength and softness. You do not have to become less capable in order to receive. You do not have to ignore reality in order to trust. You do not have to lose yourself in order to love. Your feminine awakening begins when you stop living only from defense. When you listen to your body, honor your emotions, protect your energy, create again, rest without guilt, receive without fear, and trust yourself enough to respond to life without trying to control every outcome. You are not returning to the woman you were before the pain. You are becoming a wiser version of her, more aware, more grounded, more discerning, and still capable of hope. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you do not miss our next video. Give this video a like if you want more content about feminine energy, emotional healing, spirituality, and personal growth. Share it with a woman who has spent too long being strong for everyone else. And tell me in the comments, which part of your feminine energy are you ready to recover first? Your intuition, your creativity, your softness, your ability to receive, or your trust in life? I will be reading your answers. And remember, you were never meant to live every day as though you were still in survival mode. You are allowed to feel safe. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to receive. And you are allowed to return home to yourself.